want you lying by my side. I can't sleep, already tried, but still I dream away. Thinking about the way it was, oh baby, just the two of us. We had it all, but we got lost with nothing left to say. Days turned into months, you're still the one I want, but I carry on, yeah.
Okay, so this is going to sound very crazy and strange, but my Dogman encounter was not scary at all. Kind of felt sorry for this animal. Now, it all started on a stormy night. No, seriously, it really did. January 2015. It's cold and rainy. I had just broken up with my girlfriend, Jenna. Get this. Understand, she had left her ex-boyfriend for me because he was abusive. We had been together for 2 years, and I started to notice stuff. Little things, like coming home and other people's mail was at the house, but not in the mailbox, on the kitchen table and on the coffee table. Turns out her trifling ass was sleeping with the mailman. The freaking mailman, this nasty looking 50-year-old man. Listen, I come home early one day, find the two of them on the sofa, her legs behind their head wrapped up in some type of pretzel. And the only reason why the two of them are alive till this day is because I was so pissed off that I couldn't punch in the code to my gun safe. By the time I had my weapon and headed back downstairs, he was gone and she was pulling off in a car. Anyway, like I said, it was a cold, stormy night, and I hear what sounds like something messing with the metal garbage can next to the garage. At first, I figured it was some stray dogs because we have them around town. They knock over the cans, dig in them for food, and then go on about their business. But this went on and on and on, and it sounded like someone removing the lid from the can and placing it back on top of it over and over again. Now, at this point in time, I'm not thinking much about it at all. Maybe it's some kids outside messing around with the garbage can. So I head out of the side door and start walking to the back side of the house where the garbage can is. And at first sight, I thought someone was playing a prank on me. Honestly, I really did, looking around for cameras and the whole 9 yards. Because what was before my eyes couldn't possibly be real. Now, what I saw was a 7-foot-tall wolf standing on 2 legs, but it was hunched over. You know how old people are when they have their hump in their back and it's called like scoliosis or something like that? But that's what it looked like. It was skinny. And by skinny, I mean like skin and bone skinny. It was standing on the lid of the garbage can, digging into it with its hands, claws. I don't know what the hell you would call them. But I stood there for like a solid 20 seconds, checking it out before it even noticed me. But finally, when it looked in my direction, I'm not sure what it was doing. I guess it was trying to growl, but it made this sound, muffled like there was some kind of fluid or something on its lungs. And look, maybe it was used to people being afraid of it or something, but then it starts to show its teeth. But it was so skinny and malnourished, it was hard for me to react in fear. Again, I'm standing there thinking that this couldn't possibly be real. It's got to be some kind of prank. Now, I'm assuming after its intimidation didn't work, it decided to leave because it slowly, I mean, Grandpa old slowly turned around, dropped down all fours, and then took off running. Listen, since those events, I've scoured the internet for information about werewolves and stumbled upon what you call Dogman. And I understand that people have had very frightening and scary encounters, but it wasn't like that for me. In fact, I kind of felt sorry for this thing. I wanted to give it some kind of food because to me, it looked like just maybe it had some form of cancer and it was too sick to hunt, but it wasn't frightening at all. Now, after my encounter, I found myself sitting on the sofa, completely confused, looking around for my girlfriend, and I realized that the bitch is gone. There's no one to talk to.
Let me start by saying I lived in a cutoff my whole life. And it's called a cutoff because it's just that. You drive to the end of the road and it freaking cuts off. It's a residential neighborhood in New Orleans, woods that lead to the levee, and on the other side of the levee is the river. Now, my family has been here in the cutoff since it was built, 1940. My grandfather was known as the king of the cut, mainly because he was in the business of booze and gambling, but also because my grandfather didn't stray away from violence. But this story is not about my family. It's about me as a kid. I remember playing along those levees, the excitement of getting our hands on these cardboard boxes, me and all my cousins climbing to the top of the levee, sliding down on those boxes. The most fun I had my entire life was doing this as a kid with all my family. But you know how it is when you're a kid. You believe you're invincible. Ignore all kinds of danger. Nothing can get you. Screw the alligators that were right there in the river. Didn't worry about them. Forget about the water moccasins who were right there in the weeds. We didn't worry about them. Just didn't care. And for the most part, our parents didn't either. But for some reason, every year around late August, early September, Grandpa would freak out saying, y'all stay off that damn levee. And when I tell you he would freak out, I mean he would stop whatever he was doing and physically come where we were to stop us. This particular year, I'm 13 years old. It was September 1st. I'll never forget it because it was my little sister Lillian's birthday. We were out there on the levee, sliding on them boxes. Now, the weeds had grown up to over 7 feet tall, and you could see where it looked like someone had kind of been walking down there, but we thought nothing of it. So picture the scene. Lillian is on the front side of the cardboard. I'm on the back. We take off down the levee, and the grass is a little moist, so we're really, really sliding. We hit those weeds, and they begin to lay down. Next thing you know, she and I done slid 10 to 12 feet way further than we anticipated going. Now, remember I told you, the grass was moist, but we hadn't realized that the river itself had pushed up into those weeds. Then all of a sudden, the cardboard box begins to take on water. And I remember the disappointment on my little sister's face as she said, oh man, coming to the realization that we were no longer going to be able to use this wet cardboard box. Now the two of us are still sitting there talking, but something reaches through the weeds, grabs the side of that cardboard box and gives it a tug. Not a super hard tug, but just enough of a tug for us to realize that something's going on. She turns over her shoulder, looking back at me, eyes wide open, and the next thing you know, we are yanked. And when I say yanked, we are yanked hard. Now we're moving from left to right through the weeds, making this zigzagging motion. Lillian is screaming. I'm looking around. The more she screams, the faster we move, and then we hit something. Looking back on it, I think it had to be a rock because it tears the wet cardboard box in half, and I see Lillian moving away from me as I continue through the weeds. Listen to me. I don't know if you ever found yourself in a situation where you're so terrified you just don't know what to do. That's where I was. I was so afraid that I couldn't make up my mind what I should do. Listen, I can't explain to you where the start came from, but something told me to try and stand up and jump off the box. Imagine me, box still in full motion, sliding through the weeds slapping me all across the side of the face. I'm trying to maneuver my body to my knees. Looking down, I see this hairy hand, a huge, gigantic, hairy hand with fingers clamped down, dug into that cardboard box. Following that hand, I see a forearm, a bicep, a shoulder, all covered in hair. And that's when I saw this thing's face and was completely, utterly terrified. Because it looked like one of those monkeys in a National Geographic magazine, except for its face was huge. Nose flat, pressed into its face. These gigantic eyeballs looking back at me. Pointy cheekbones penetrating under the flesh of its face. And it was smiling at me like it was having fun, pulling me through the weeds. Now listen to me, I don't know if that smile is how these things look when they're having fun, but for me as a kid, it was just this sinister smile, revealing these gigantic yellow and blackish teeth. Again, I can't explain to you what was happening to me physiologically, but now listen to me, I can't even articulate any thoughts that were going through my mind at that moment, because there weren't any thoughts. I was just completely afraid. And listen, I didn't think of doing this. I just rolled off the box. Next thing you know, I'm laying face down in the mud, and anybody who knows me knows that I do not like having my face dirty. But no time for that whatsoever. Now I'm up screaming, running back in the opposite direction through the weeds, up the levee, mud compacted in one eye, the other eye wide open. And when I get to the top of the levee, I realize I'm 7 blocks away from where we started. Screaming at the top of my lungs, this older boy, Gerard, comes running. And he's like, Lisa, what's wrong? Barely able to speak, I mouth the words. Something grabbed me. Now listen to me, fearful, afraid, traumatized, none of those words actually can capture the feelings and emotions that I was going through. Gerard walks with me about a half a block through the neighborhood when I literally see my entire family, some of them on the street, others on top of the levee, everyone with guns. For a moment, everyone thought that Gerard had done me something. So now this poor kid who helped me is laying on the ground, scared for his life, guns pointed in his face. Lillian, my sister, is running up, hugging me, smearing more of the mud from my eyes into my mouth and into my nose. I'm crying, trying to tell my grandfather what happened. This look comes over his face and over the face of every other adult that's standing there. I want you to understand at this point in time, this has been such a huge commotion in this neighborhood that there are over 50 adults outside. And 15 minutes later, I watch as 24 men go over the levee looking for what Lillian and I described to them. Now, for years, that was where the story ended for me. No matter who I asked, there was no way of getting any more information about what happened. I asked my grandfather, I asked my father, I asked my aunties, my uncles, my mother. Nobody would tell me anything. But get this, I'm 21 years old. We're boiling crawfish and hanging out on that same levee. My Uncle Tank is drunk as hell and he gets to running his mouth talking about how him, my grandpa, and my uncles all went chasing down this Bigfoot that tried to kidnap Lillian and me when we were kids. He goes on to explain every detail, how they followed the trail through the weeds, found where it crossed the Mississippi River, then went and got boats and tracked it down into the swamps on the other side of the river. According to Uncle Tank, everyone was pissed. And the only reason why they turned back is because Grandpa found a 12-foot long alligator. Its neck broken, skin ripped from its tail, a bite taken out of the meat. Understand, Tank is standing up in front of everyone, beer in his hand, drunk, acting out the scenes of them going through the swamps. That's when he says Grandpa stopped them from going forward because whatever killed that 12-foot long alligator and broke his neck was going to be one of the bigger Bigfoots that they've ever seen. And he told them they didn't need to be in the swamps trying to fight something like that. Look, after all these years, I come to a couple of conclusions about my Bigfoot encounter. Number one, if that Bigfoot wanted to take us, it could have just grabbed us, both of us, and ran off. Over the years, it had been watching us kids play and slide down the levee, and it decided it wanted to play too. But it just didn't understand that to us, it was nothing more than a monster. I've already shared a few of my family stories with you guys from State Line, Mississippi. And I was advised by Dark Waters to wait a while before I share more, but I wanted to tell you guys this story. This happened to my uncle and my cousin right on West State Line Road. And before some smart ass on YouTube says this story is secondhand or third hand, no it's not, because my father had to go pick them up from the woods when this happened. Year 2019. My uncle and my cousin are headed down West State Line Road when a freaking tree limb flies out into the road as he's driving close enough to his vehicle where there's no way for him to avoid it. My uncle Jody rolls over this tree limb, puncturing one of his tires and damn near ripping off the entire back axle of his truck. Imagine the scene. The truck stranded in the middle of the road. It's 9:30 at night. The two of them get out. They're inspecting what's going on, and they start to hear freaking growling coming from the wood lines. My uncle tells my cousin to get back in the truck, goes around to the driver's side, reaches into the back seat, gets his shotgun and his flashlight, and climbs up into the bed of his truck, looking around. As he's standing there scanning the wood lines to determine where the growling is coming from, my cousin is now calling my father, who is at home with me, sitting on the sofa watching TV, frantically telling my father that something threw a tree limb into the road, puncturing their tire, and that they are now stranded on the side of the road, and whatever it is growling at them. I watch my father get up from the sofa, grab a shotgun, haul ass out of the front door, and head to their location. Now, by the time my father gets there, my uncle has taken 3 shots at what he describes as a 7-foot tall walking wolf that was trying to come out of the tree line towards them. When my father arrives at the location, he sees his brother standing in the bed of the truck, looking like he just saw a ghost, his nephew in the front seat of the truck, crying like a little girl. Panic comes over him. Now listen to me, it doesn't make sense to me why all of them did anything other than get their ass into my dad's truck and leave, but this is what happened. My father gets out of his truck and walks over to my uncle's truck. As he's headed that way, he hears the growl, turns in that direction. My uncle shines his light on only what can be described as a freaking Dogman. A dog standing on two legs. And the two of them light his ass up with buckshots and slugs. When it turns around and retreats to the woods, all of them hop in my dad's vehicle and head back to my house. For the next 2 hours, I sit there and watch all of them try to mentally process what they had just experienced, the hell had just happened. At sunrise, all four of us returned to that location only to discover that my uncle's truck is not there. Only to discover that my uncle's truck is no longer there. It's been towed by the sheriff because it was sitting in the middle of the road. Now get this, when we go to get the vehicle, my uncle is pissed because all of the windows are smashed out on his car. He is standing there arguing with the sheriff's department saying, listen, whoever towed my vehicle had to do this damage. The tow truck driver is called on the phone and he tells my uncle that when he got there, that's how he found the vehicle. Now listen, I done told y'all before, State Line, Mississippi is a paranormal hotspot. If State Line, Mississippi was actually a haunted hotel, it would be the fucking Stanley Hotel. That's how crazy this shit is around here.